بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So tonight inshallah we're going to study and touch on the topic of Salatul Istikharah and a few masail connected to Salatul Istikharah, how to know what to do after Istikharah, how to perform Istikharah, stipulations connected to Istikharah, how to perform actions in the Salah of Istikharah, and a few other things inshallah. So we begin, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and we mention that Istikharah means that a person removes from himself his ability to make the correct decision and takes his affair and his thoughts and he links it straight to Allah, and he seeks from Allah that Allah guides him to the correct decision. So Istikharah is like that, and the wisdom of it is a person acknowledges and realizes his inability, his weakness, his ignorance, and he acknowledges that Allah is the one all capable and all knowledgeable, and he goes to Allah seeking Allah's guidance and Allah's barakah in the decision that he makes in this affair that he's not sure which way to go. So that's what that's the objective of Istikharah in a nutshell. So Istikharah is not something that basically gives you an idea of the future or gives you any idea into the unseen, nothing like that. Istikharah is merely where a person seeks the barakah of Allah, the barakah from Allah and the guidance from Allah in this thing he's going to undertake. Either the decision he's going to make and then what he's going to undertake, or he's already has an idea what he's going to undertake, and then he seeks the barakah of Allah in this decision, either in doing it or in not doing it, or in Allah putting an obstacle in his way to turn him away from that thing that may well not be good for him, and he does not know that, so that's why he goes to Allah, and he goes to Allah trusting in Allah. So the ruling on Istikharah is that Istikharah is sunnah. Istikharah is sunnah. It's not something waajib, it's not something fard, it's something that is recommended for a person to do in his life when he has decisions to make or choices to make or affairs he's going to undertake. Then it's recommended for him to perform Salatul Istikharah, which means that if a person does the opposite of what he initially thought after the Istikharah or before the Istikharah, or something that indicated to him what to do from the Istikharah, he does the opposite thing, then he's not sinful. He's not sinful. Why? Because Istikharah itself is not fard, and then doing the result of Istikharah, whatever it may be when we mention it, that is not a must on a person. That is not a must on a person. So that has to do with an introduction into Istikharah. Then we get the knowledge and the hadith of Istikharah from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In the Sahih, wa Jabir radiallahu anhu says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to teach us Istikharah and recommended for us to do Istikharah fil umuri kulliha kasurati min al-Qur'an. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to tell us to perform Salatul Istikharah for every affair. For every affair. So the hadith, let's mention the hadith first, and then we'll break down the meaning of the hadith and masail connected to it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to teach the Sahaba Salatul Istikharah, like how, and the du'a of Istikharah, like how he used to teach them a surah from the Qur'an. He said to them that when you want to do Istikharah from Allah, perform 2 rakah of salah other than the fard salah. Then in your salah or after your salah you recite and you say the following words, and then he mentions the du'a sallallahu alayhi wasallam of Istikharah. Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmik. Oh Allah, I seek your counseling because you have the most knowledge. Wa astaqdiruka biqudratik, and I seek your power because you have power and I don't have power, and you know and I don't know. وَتَعْلَمْ وَلَا أَعْلَمْ وَأَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ, and you are the knower of the unseen. So Allah knows the unseen, and then obviously He knows the apparent. So that's another point in the dua where you go to Allah's knowledge and acknowledge Allah and acknowledge His knowledge and acknowledge how vast and deep Allah is and how we are nothing. وأنت علام الغيوب. Then you say اللهم إن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر خير لي في ديني ومعاشي وعاقبة أمري أو آجل أمره أو عاجله أو عاجل أمره أو آجله. And oh Allah, if you know that this affair is going to bring about goodness for me in this world, in my religion, and in the next world, in the upcoming part of my life. soon upcoming part, in the later upcoming part of my life, then facilitate it for me and make it easy for me. فَيَسِّرْهُ لِي ثُمَّ بَارِكْ لِي فِيهِ. Then bless me in this affair. Then bless me in this affair. And if you know that doing this and going forward with this decision or this thing is going to bring about unpleasant results in my life, this life, current life, next life, religion, upcoming future, foreseeable future, long-term future, then turn me away from this affair. And turn this affair away from me, and then make me pleased with whatever the outcome is. ثُمَّ رَضِّنِي بِهِ. So ثُمَّ رَضِّنِي بِهِ. So you can say ثُمَّ رَضِّنِي بِهِ, or you can say ثُمَّ أَرْضِنِي بِهِ. So you're asking Allah to make you pleased with the outcome. You're asking Allah to make you pleased with the outcome of Istikharah. So now if we go through the hadith of Istikharah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Jabir radiallahu anhu says, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam should teach us Istikharah, encouraging us to do it in all of our affairs. So that from there we're going to mention a few things. Number one, Istikharah is recommended in affairs that are big in your life and even small things. Istikharah is recommended for big things in your life, big decisions in your life, but also for small things. But also for small things, you go and seek the help of Allah because you don't know where is the goodness. You don't know where is the goodness, and you want the barakah from Allah always at every affair. And then in saying that, now Istikharah does not fall into certain things. Certain things you do not do Istikharah for. And that is things that are haram. Things that are haram you do not do Istikharah for. Things that are makruh you do not do Istikharah for. Things that, because those things you should not be doing anyway. Things that are waajib or fard, you have to do anyway. So you don't need to do Istikharah. You don't need to do Istikharah. Do I perform salaat to tarawih, or do I perform any salah, or do I recite quraan? You don't need to do Istikharah for those things that you know for sure they are good. And most of the time that has to do with ibadah. So you don't do Istikharah for those things. Therefore, Istikharah is done for actions that are sunnah. But what does that mean? That means an action that is sunnah to do, you can do Istikharah for when is the best time to do it. So for example, you've performed the fard hajj, because hajj you should not, you perform the fard hajj, and now you want to perform a nafil hajj. So you do Istikharah not for the hajj, but should I do the hajj this year or not this year? And obvious, or most likely there should be a valid reason why you are debating this year or next year. Some or other thing that's in your way, maybe it will affect, maybe not, or maybe it won't affect. Or even in general, you can do Istikharah. Should I do it this year or should I do it next year? Or should I do it when in the future? So for an ibadah, that's not fard. Why? Because the moment hajj becomes fard, the person should try and do it as soon as possible. He should try and do it as soon as possible. But for something that is not fard and it has a time, you can either do it now or next time or whenever, then there you can do Istikharah. So another example would be to correct a ruler, or publicly, if a person were to do that. If we were to say it's permissible and a person were to do this, a person can do Istikharah, asking Allah for guidance. Should he correct the ruler in public or private or not? Why? Because it could lead to something worse. It could lead to harm for the public because the ruler is not happy and then he punishes the person and other people. So there he can do Istikharah. Should he do it or not? In which case, if he does Istikharah, in the case where he fears harm, then he does not have to correct the ruler. If it harms everyone, then there he does not. If it harms himself, then it's no more waajib. He can do it if he wants. It's no more waajib on him. So there you can do Istikharah. And then even we mentioned some things that are makruh or haram, you do not do Istikharah. But sometimes a person is almost compelled, is almost forced to do something. So in that case, either he does this action which is makruh or that action which is makruh. There's no third option. Or this action that is haram or that one that is haram. There's no other option. No other option at all. And if he doesn't do it, it's going to be quite severe harm on him. Then in this case, you can do Istikharah as well. Which one should he do? So basically, the main crux of Istikharah are for those things that are permissible. They do not have, as a starting point, they do not have a reward connected to them. Because if they have a reward, there's something good. If they have a sin or blame, like a makruh thing is blameworthy but no sin, then in those cases, as a start, there's no Istikharah for those specific things. So general things. So you need to get married, you found somebody to get married to, or a few options, or a job, or you want to study a specific science or in a specific university or specific faculty, those kind of things, which doctor to choose for your operation, things like that. That's where Istikharah falls in most of the time. That's where Istikharah, do I go to this place or do I not go to this place? Things like that. Do I travel now? Do I not travel now? Things like that. That's when Istikharah comes in for most of the time. And then when a person does Istikharah, they say that Istikharah, most of the ulama say it's for permissible things, as we said. So you don't know the end result. It's not for sure good or bad. So it's not sure, it's a permissible thing. But certain things, the outcome is most likely good. So you know, for example, I should undertake this business journey because it may well be profitable. Or you know for sure that I need to do this surgery. You've got to do it. So in this case, is the Istikharah because it's kind of known it's profitable? So that's your first point. You kind of know the thing is profitable. You kind of know the thing is beneficial. So here some ulama have phrased it that you do Istikharah for things that are good, even if you know they are good. Even if you know they are good. So it's like Al-Buhuti mentions it, but one could argue that he phrased it in a certain manner in some of his books and he clarified or gave more details in another of his books. But the point is, it is there. It is there. So a person could do Istikharah for something that he knows will most likely be good. Why? Because the end result he doesn't know. Apparently it seems good. But what if he undertakes this journey and it's actually not good? So therefore he goes to Allah. He goes to Allah and asking Allah for Allah's guidance in this. The thing is with Istikharah, so now a person is going to do this thing, it's most likely going to be good. So he's seeking the barakah of Allah. And then there's some things that, so now you have this thing. So that's our thing we're going to connect it to. So they most likely going to be good. So in this case, you can still do Istikharah. So connected to this is Istikharah done for things that you don't have a decision for, or you have an inclination for, or you already have a decision for? What is the result? Which one do you do? So Istikharah is done for actions. Let's put it into categories. Number one, things you don't know. You're not sure. Should I take the job or not? You're not sure. You're not inclining yet to anything. In this case, you do Istikharah. And most of the ulama phrase it like this. They say that what you do is you do Istikharah for something that you are not sure at all which way. You have no inclination which way to go yet. So then you do Istikharah because then you are properly taking your affairs and putting it in the court of Allah. That totally, Ya Allah, you know, I don't know. You are powerful, I'm not powerful. And if this thing is good, then you facilitate it. And if it's not, then turn it away from me. Totally, you have nothing in your head already that I'm going for this or not going for it. Or I feel this way or I don't feel this way. So that's number one, you do it for that. So now what if you already have a decision? Or let's say an inclination. Number two, you have an inclination to marry this person. You had a few options and this is the person you incline towards. Or you have these few jobs, this is the one you incline towards. Or these few options to study in and you incline towards this one. It's not yet a decision. It's just an inclination. I just feel that maybe this is what I should do. Or I just have a connection. Maybe this might be the better thing to do. Here you still do Istikharah. And what if you now have a decision that I want to marry this person? It's not yet that you finalize it and you've already proposed and it's over, but you know that's the person I want to marry most likely, and the next step is to propose. Or I've applied, or I'm going to apply for this study in this university or in this faculty, or I'm most likely going to take this job. It's basically almost as good as done. The only thing left is your final steps. The final steps to fulfill this thing which you are after. In this case, some of the ulama say you still do Istikharah. They say, so they don't say like the rest of the ulama where you have no option. Here you have an inclination. So now when you say, oh Allah, if I do this action, now you have a firm, clear action, what to do, and you're going to most likely go for it, or you are sure I should not take this job, I should not marry this person. But then you do Istikharah. Why? Because Istikharah can still be Istikharah. It might not have the full authenticity and full vibe of Istikharah because you kind of have a decision, but there's still barakah because it's a dua to Allah. And it's still a person, despite thinking and analyzing and realizing this is the way to go, this is the person to marry, or this is the doctor to go to, he still realizes his weakness and he still goes to Allah. And still, what if this thing is not good for a person? Or what if it is good for the person? Then through the barakah of Istikharah, Allah can facilitate that thing for him. So it's important to know these things, and Istikharah can be done in all of these cases. And if you've made a decision, you've already applied, or you've already proposed. Can you now still do Istikharah? Because Istikharah is a du'a. Because Istikharah is a du'a, and still you're not married yet. You're not married yet. There's still opportunity, something, the thing get turned away, or you're not yet at the job you've just applied, or you're most likely going towards the job, or you're not yet booked the surgery, or even if you've booked the date for the surgery with the doctor, you can still do Istikharah, because Istikharah is still a du'a. Yes, it might not have the full authenticity of Istikharah, because you kind of have a decision. So how much place are you leaving for Allah's decision? That's why when a person does Istikharah in these cases, as much as he's inclined to these things, as much as he's inclined to these things, he must know his weakness. He must know his weakness, and that he must also know that actually, yes, I'm inclined to this, but I want Allah to be involved. I want Allah to facilitate for me. So even though you're inclined, if you get signs or obstacles from Allah, even though you've decided for it, to turn you away from this thing, as you've asked in the dua, then in this case, because you've put your heart to Allah properly, then in this case you should take the sign from Allah. And even though beforehand you thought, I'm not going to, or I am going to, but now things, all of a sudden, doors open to do this thing, or doors open not to do this thing. Despite you thinking in the first hand, I do not want to do it, or I want to do it, but your Istikharah is true to Allah, then in this case you should apply what your Istikharah did. But if you did Istikharah, but no matter what you're going to do this thing, then your Istikharah is not proper in the first place. Your Istikharah is not proper in the first place. Now the difference there is, now when a person has not made any decision and he has no inclination, then there whatever happens he's probably going to do it. So that has more of the vibe of Istikharah. And if a person has an inclination, it's not yet a final decision, then in that case he still will more likely go to what Allah facilitates, or what he now sees obstacles, it might be easier for him to now turn away. That's why it's so important in Istikharah that a person connects himself to Allah, that a person connects his heart to Allah. And a person, when he recites the dua of Istikharah, he ponders over the meaning of the dua. I've translated it quickly and loosely, but when a person recites this dua, he should recite it, understanding its meaning, pondering over the words, because then, and he must actually visualize it, realize that actually I am turning my affair totally to Allah, and that Allah knows and I don't know. Actually bring these things properly into your life and into your thoughts, and then let the affairs go, and what Allah chooses will happen. And the person's initial choice, that if obstacles start coming, he should not. But that's why a person needs the connection to his Istikharah. He should be pure to Allah and true to Allah, and then the Istikharah will have barakah, then the Istikharah will be correct. And even if he made the decision, still too he should link it truly to Allah, not just for the sake of it, that I can say, oh, I've done Istikharah, but it didn't work out, or it worked out, but it wasn't in the long run a good decision for me. No, you have to trust your affairs to Allah completely. So now, when we say you do Istikharah for one, so now we say Istikharah is done for one thing or for more than one thing. For one thing or more than one thing. So either I travel here or I don't. I marry her or I don't. Or I marry person A, person B, person C. Either of them. How do you phrase the Istikharah? And how would you implement this in your Istikharah? So when you come to the words, Allahumma in kunta ta'lamu anna hadha al-amr. Oh Allah, if you know that this thing is good for me. So when you come here, it's the fuqaha say, some of them specify, like al-Tahawi from the Hanafiya, that when you come, Allahumma in kunta ta'lamu anna hadha al-amr. Oh Allah, if you know that this thing, when you say amr, this thing or this affair, here you mention your need. Here you either mention it, but you could also keep it in your mind. You could also, for example, recollect it in the moment. But here you say, oh Allah, if marrying this person is good for me, that's when it's one thing, or not good for me, or taking this job or not taking this job. Right? So if it's one thing, it's quite clear. Oh Allah, if you know this thing, going to this doctor, it's good for me, then facilitate it for me, make it easy for me, bless me in it. And if it's not, then turn it away from me, and turn me away from it, and then make me happy with the outcome of whatever has been chosen. So that's when there's one thing. Now if there's more than one thing, the ulama say that it would be better for a person to do Istikharah for each thing separately. For each thing separately. So, oh Allah, I want to marry this person. Oh Allah, if you know marrying, you have A, B, C. Person A, marrying person A is good for me, facilitate it for me. And then you finish the entire dua, entire salah, done. Then you do it again and again. Why? Because it goes more with the words of the hadith, but it includes more salah and more dua, so it gives more strength and more chance, more showing a person's weakness to Allah, and more chance of Allah accepting the dua. That Allah, it comes in the hadith, Allah loves that slave who calls out and cries out and beseeches to Allah in dua. That's why, for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Allahumma fir li dhanbi kullah diqqahu wa jillahu wa awwalahu wa akhirah, to the end of the dua. Oh Allah, forgive all my sins. Then he said, my big sins, my small sins, my apparent sins, my hidden sins. But why does he continue mentioning all these things? Even though he started off saying, Allah, forgive all my sins. Because that's a type of beseeching Allah totally. So here you're doing Istikhaara and again, for for each thing separately. But a person can also do one Istikhaara and include all those things. So he can say, oh Allah, if marrying so-and-so, or so-and-so, or so-and-so is good for me, and facilitate it for me, make it easy for me. And if marrying so-and-so, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, marrying so-and-so, or so-and-so, or so-and-so is bad for me, then turn it away from me. If he wants to say and so-and-so, he can do, up to him. Or taking this job or that job. If taking this job or studying this faculty is good, studying in this faculty or in the other faculty is good for me, then facilitate it for me. So basically what he has to do is he gets the meaning out. He gets the meaning of what he wants to say out at that sentence in the dua, and then he carries on. So not split, he doesn't have to phrase it the way I phrase it exactly, but he gets that meaning out, and it's similar to the way I phrased it. He'll phrase whether he asks for one thing or more than one thing, So Jabir radiallahu anhu says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught them Istikhaara like a surah from the Qur'an, So the ulama asked that what's the reason, or what's the benefit of connecting it to a surah from the Qur'an? So they mention a few things. Number one, they say it's like a person needs recitation in salah. Recitation in the salah, if a person did not recite anything, in some cases the salah would be invalid, in some cases it would not be invalid, but it would need sajda sahw, etc. So it's basically needed for the salah to be valid. So it's something that is extremely needed. So in the same way, Istikhaara should be in a person's life, that it's needed in basically most of his affairs. Not every little thought he does Istikhaara. That's why some of the ulama say he does Istikhaara when he has a decision. Because otherwise every thought he's going to think, let me do Istikhaara, must I not? So that's number one. Number two, they say, like how the Qur'an, like how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to teach us the Qur'an, it indicates that dua of Istikhaara is like wahi. Wahi came, specific words, specific manner, and it's blessed in the same manner as not in the same manner completely, but it's also blessed just like how the Qur'an is blessed. So not in the same level of blessings, but the Qur'an being blessed, this is also in its own manner, it's blessed as well. And it also indicates that it's probably wahi. These words have come from wahi to say it in this specific manner. Number three, it also shows, it could indicate that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught the Istikhaara exactly word for word. And therefore a person, when he does the dua of Istikhaara, he should do it word for word. He should not increase in the dua or decrease in the dua. He should do it exactly as the way it comes in the hadith. As the way it comes in the hadith is the way he should recite the dua of Istikhaara. In fact, the mas'ala of when a masnoon dua comes, can you add words, can you delete words, can you switch words? The ulama speak on that mas'ala. Another time we touch on it. But for Istikhaara, a person should try for the majority of the dua, all of the dua except where he mentions his thing, should keep it as is in the dua. You should mention it as is in the dua. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told them, إِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ. If one of you has one of you just has the thought of the thing to do, then he should perform Salatul Istikhaara. So that's ham. What's the meaning of ham? Is it just the thought? As we said, he's undecided. It's just a thought, do I do this or this? Or is it ham can also mean azima, that I want to do this thing and I'm going for it? There we mentioned just now both things. Majority mentioned the first thing and other ulama mentioned the latter thing. That is, once you made a decision, therefore both can go. And a person can do either. Then connected to Istikhaara is another thing called Istishara. Istishara means to consult somebody regarding your affair. So the ulama say that Istikhaara should be coupled with Istishara. Istikhaara should be coupled with Istishara. And Istishara means, as we said, to seek the counsel, seek the advice of somebody else. So here they question, does a person do Istikhaara first and then Istishara, or Istishara first then Istikhaara? And the ulama have two opinions. Some say you do Istishara first, and others say you do Istikhaara first. So a person, to summarize it, a person can do either. Sometimes a person may want to consult a few people, and then he gets a decision especially if there's more than one thing, then he can do Istikharah, and then he does Istikharah after. Or if there's one thing he can still consult, then do Istikharah on the result of the consultation. Or a person can maybe think, let me get Allah's barakah first and then do Istikharah. Because why? Sometimes the result of your Istikharah, Allah will show it through to your Istikharah. So you consult one or two people, they'll all seemingly be telling you the same thing. So it could be that Allah is facilitating or showing you this is what you should do. So Istikharah could come there, or it could come before, or it could come before. So a person can analyze his situation and he can realize he can do either. Sometimes the thing is quite clear what he should do, so he doesn't need to consult, then it's fine as well. He does Istikharah and he does what he decides, or what he's decided, or what he inclined to, and then فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. When you've made your decision, when you've made your decision and you now have firm resolve, then put your total trust in Allah. And that's what a believer should do. That's what you should do. You should make a decision and put your trust in Allah. So therefore, whether a person does consult somebody first or after his Istikharah, both of them go. A person can look at his situation and analyze whether he wants to do Istikharah first or Istikharah. And both of them work. Both of them are correct manner of doing Istikharah. Because one of the ways of a barakah of Istikharah is doing it completely according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then Ibn Taymiyyah says, مَا نَدِمَ مَنِ اسْتَخَارَ الْخَالِقِ وَشَاوَرَ الْمَخْلُوقِينَ وَثَبَتَ فِي الْأَمْرِ or ثَبَتَ فِي أَمْرِهِ. That a person will never regret if he does Istikharah of Allah, seeks Allah's barakah and does Istikharah of Allah, then consults the people and seeks their consultation, and then he's firm in his choice. He's firm in his choice. He doesn't have regrets because he realizes whatever it is, it's by the decree of Allah. Whatever happens is by the decree of Allah. Then Qatada radiallahu anhu says about the verse, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Qatada radiallahu anhu says, مَا تَشَاوَرَ قَوْمٌ يَبْتَغُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ إِلَّا هُدُوا إِلَى أَرْشَدِ أَمْرِهِمْ. That no person consulted other people, consulting other people where he seeks, doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah and wanting to reach the correct decision for the sake of Allah, except that such a person will be guided in his choice. Except that such a person will be guided in his choice. So now when we say consult, who do you consult? So normally a person would consult somebody who's more knowledgeable than him, or more experienced than him, elder than him. So what a person should do is consult somebody who has knowledge of the thing you want to consult of, you want consultation of, and he should be a trustworthy, religiously connected or Allah conscious person. Then you can trust his advice. And it's very important a person analyzes who he consults, because though a person might have more experience than you in this thing, or knowledge than you, sometimes a person is not good at giving advice. So he doesn't, for example, if he's giving you advice, he doesn't think of you and how you are as a person and then give you advice accordingly. Many times the person would give advice, but he'd look at it from his lens, that he put him in your position, but he doesn't realize your temperament is different, your personality is different. So his advice will not fit with you. So at times it might not help to consult such a person. Yes, they could mention something you don't know and you can consider it, but consider the best people for your istikharah. Consider the best people for your istikharah. Sometimes a person, for example, a person could be, he's very to himself person. What's the word? The person is, for example, I'm forgetting the word now. He is not a people's person. And then this person who is consulting is a people's person. So he gives him advice based on himself, not considering this person himself. So it's important to see who you select to take advice from. And then the Mufassirin mentioned something very beneficial, where Allah Azza wa Jalla tells Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Allah tells Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to consult the Sahaba in affairs. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the most senior, maybe not in age, and maybe not in experience in worldly things, in some worldly things. There might be people more experienced than him, but most cases people would be below Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And yet Allah tells Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to seek their counsel. So from here the Mufassirin say that it's not a stipulation that a person you consult be elder than you, or specifically more knowledgeable than you in general. But it's also praiseworthy if a person knows somebody is younger than him, or less experienced than him in general, or less knowledgeable in general, to still consult that person, if in that case you know that person might know better, or might actually have dealt with the situation. So you go to this person younger It's something praiseworthy as well, and taken from the ayah. So then Rasulullah says, فَلْيَرْكَعْ رَكْعَتَيْنِ. So a person now wants to do an affair, wants to make a decision, so now he should perform 2 rak'ah of salah. So here, 2 rak'ah of salah, the ulama mentioned the method of istikharah. There's basically 3 ways they mention. Number 1, the best method is to perform salah and 2 rak'ah specifically for istikharah. Nafal salah, Rasulullah said to perform 2 rak'ah, not the farad salah. So it's nafil salah, 2 rak'ah with the intention of istikharah. You made the intention, and as we said, do you have to articulate the intention? The answer is no. The answer is no, as we mentioned, right? You do not have to do so. You just know, okay, I'm performing istikharah. So you do perform salatul istikharah, and then afterwards du'a. The second option is a person supplicates alone. It's only du'a. So that can specifically happen in cases like a person wants to do istikharah at a time where it's prohibited to perform salah. In that case, he can do it with just du'a. Or a lady in hayd, for example, she cannot perform the salah, she can recite the du'a. So here, still too, perhaps one could say, if the decision a person needs to make before the time of prohibition of salah goes out, then based on those ulama who say you're allowed to pray salah in the time with this prohibition, if the salah has a specific reason to be prayed, in this case, perhaps a person could perform salah to istikharah. But the dua in this case is fine. So he can recite the entire dua of istikharah as it comes in the hadith. Or he could recite a shorter dua. Tirmidhi narrates from Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he used to have some affairs, he used to say a few words of istikharah to Allah. So not the full dua, he used to say, Allahumma khirli wa khtarli. Oh Allah, destine for me that which is good and choose for me. So he can use that as well. He or she can use that dua as well. The third manner is to perform a salah that's not specifically for istikharah, and then dua afterwards. So this salah that is not specifically for istikharah, so like fard salah or nafil or sunnah salah, like your sunnah after dhuhr or after isha or salatul duha, for example, then in this case, the Shafi'i and Maliki scholars mention this, and most of them say you should have the intention as well. So you can have a dual intention. Your intention is your primary or your main one is your 2 rak'ah sunnah of dhuhr, and then with it is your istikharah. Or 2 sunnah of isha after isha, and with it is your istikharah. And here, some ulama say even if you do not have the intention from the beginning of the salah, then after salah you can still recite the dua and it will count as istikharah. But preferably to have the intention, and then you can recite the dua after the salah. So then, how is the manner of the salatul istikharah? A person should perform wudu. A person should perform his normal wudu, or he's in the state of wudu. Then he performs 2 rak'ah, as we said, preferably normal nafil salah, or he just has dua, or he performs the salah he's going to perform anyway with the intention of istikharah. And then, so the intention is there, and then he performs his salah as normal. But what does he recite in salatul istikharah? So here the ulama say, many of them, Hanafi, Shafi'i, and Maliki, many of them say that you recite surah Kafirun in the first rak'ah and surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad in the second rak'ah. So they say that why they mention this, there's no specific ahadith, but they say that these ayat mention the tawheed of Allah. So a person is acknowledging Allah and the power of Allah and a person's weakness and a person's need of Allah. So it fits to recite such verses in this case. And other ulama say in this case, a person should recite verses that have the meaning of choice, and that the choice is for Allah. So they say to recite in Surah Qasas, وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ. So the verses until وَيَعْلَمُ مَا وَاللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ لَهُ الْحَمْدُ فِي الْأُولَى وَالْآخِرَةِ وَلَهُ الْحُكْمُ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. So it's like 3 or 4 verses, 3 or 4 pages towards the end of Surah Qasas, where you recite those 3 or 4 verses. The meaning of basically the first part of the verse is that Allah chooses, Allah creates what He wills, and Allah chooses. So because it has that meaning, you basically recite it. It fits the place to recite it. In the second rak'ah, they say you recite the second page of Juz 22, Surah Ahzab, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ, to the end of the verse. The ayah means that when Allah and His Messenger decree something, then a believer should have no say in it, should not oppose it or have any questions further in it to kind of object or oppose in it. So again, it has a person turning the affair to Allah. So they say it's preferable to recite these verses as well. So it's just that one verse in the second rakah. And other ulama, the Hanbali madhab, they do not specify anything to recite, so you can recite anything. Then you perform the 2 rak'ah of salah as usual. Now, most of the ulama say salatul istikharah is 2 rak'ah. The Shafi'i scholars mention that 2 that comes in the hadith is to indicate it's the least amount. So more than that, if a person is performing 4 rak'at, let's say farad al-dhuhr or sunnah, that he performs 4 rak'at with 1 salam, they say it will be achieved. Salatul Istikhaara, if the intention is there, it will be achieved when a person performs 4 rak'at. So basically, a person should try and perform Salatul Istikhaara 2 rak'ah on its own with the intention, nafil separate for Istikhaara. If he's not able to do that, then he should join the intention with a general nafil salah, with another nafil salah. If not, then a sunnah salah, and if not, then he can perform it joining the intention of the farad salah. And then when he's going to join the intention, then he should try and do it, first of all, if he's able, in a 2 rak'ah nafil salah or 2 rak'ah farad salah. If he's not able, or for some other reason, any reason, then it's okay in the 4 rak'ah. It's okay in the 4 rak'ah. And preferably a person should have the intention at the start. If he doesn't have the intention, then based on what some ulama say, from the Shafi'i and Maliki scholars, he can then still supplicate after and it would still count. But preferably, if it's especially a nafil salah and he's intended, let's say, to stand up and perform the salah, but he forgot to, think of the intention before salah, especially most of the time it won't matter. But let's say, for example, you decide to perform salat istikharah before your sunnah of dhuhr. So you go to your place of salah, to the mosque, and generally you start Allahu Akbar with the sunnah of dhuhr. Today, you intended istikharah first before you got to the mosque, but you said Allahu Akbar. So now you're not sure, because usually it's for your sunnah of dhuhr, so that out of habit you started it like that, but you had this intention few minutes ago for istikharah. So in this case, it would be preferable a person completes the salah as a general nafil salah, or if it's most likely he had the semi-intention of sunnah, then he should count his sunnah, and then he performs istikharah again. And he does not apply the other opinion that I mentioned, because most of the ulama don't mention it. But if he does, then inshallah it will be okay. So that's for the amount of rak'at in salatul istikharah and the dual intention and what to do. So then a person performs the salah as he usually does. Now here most of the ulama say the du'a of istikharah happens after the salah. But some of the ulama, some of the Shafi'i and Maliki scholars say that it's permissible to perform the du'a in salah before the salam. So after at-tahiyyatu lillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, then now when it's your chance for du'a, here you can say the du'a of istikharah. Or you can say it in sujood. So with regards to this, saying the du'a in sujood, in general du'a in sujood has a very different, unique sweetness. So a benefit the ulama mentioned that a person says when he comes up from ruku', he says Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. Here Sami'a, Sin Mim Ain, generally means to hear. But Allah says, if we translate it, is that Allah hears the one who praises Him. But in reality, Allah does not only hear the one who praises Him, Allah hears everything. Those who praise Him, those who don't. Loud sounds, soft sounds. Allah hears everything. So Sami'a here means istajab. Allah answers the person who praises Him. So now we say Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. We say Allah answers, meaning answers the dua of someone who praises Him. So what do we say? We say Rabbana lakal hamd, or Rabbana wa lakal hamd, or Allahumma Rabbana lakal hamd, or Allahumma Rabbana wa lakal hamd, or Allahumma Rabbana lakal hamd. Those four. So basically you're saying, oh Allah, oh my Lord, for you is all praise. Why do we say that? Because the next posture is sajda. So in sajda, in your sujood, that's a place of dua. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said the closest the slave is to Allah is when he's in sajda. So therefore increase your dua. So because your dua is coming next, and you say Allah answers the dua of those who praise Him, in between that you praise Allah. So that inshallah when you get into sajda, that dua is most likely to be answered. So now the dua, if it's done in salah, can it be done in a language other than Arabic? We say, first of all, try and say it in Arabic. And this means try and memorize it. But not only lip service, try and know the meaning so a person can comprehend and contemplate and ponder over the dua, that's where the effect will come. That's where it will hit the heart and the effect will come. So we'll say it in Arabic, right? And if not, then say it in your language. So we're not going to go into the fiqh of that, but in summary, say it in your language. But if it's fard salah, try and keep it in Arabic. Try and keep it in Arabic. If it's a sunnah salah, try and keep it in Arabic. If it's a sunnah salah, especially emphasize sunnah. If it's a general nafil, here there's more scope. Here there's more scope in general in fiqh to say the dua in your language. So try and work it in those steps. Try and work it in those steps. And if you say it before the end of the salah, before the end, same thing applies. Same thing applies. And if you do it after the salah, it's best to recite it from memory. But a person can read it from a page if he hasn't memorized it. And there he'd say it in Arabic or in English, he reads it out. Then he can basically, if he's doing it before salam, then in Arabic, as we said, preferably in Arabic. And if he does it after the salam, then he can do it in Arabic and in the language, in any language of his own language, and he can say it and he can recite it from a piece of paper. In salah, the ulama allow reading something in salah from a book or something. So you could perhaps, without many movements, maybe take your phone out or keep the page next to you and then put it on your lap and read from there. But a person should not try and do so. If he doesn't know it, leave it for after salah. Leave it for after salah. And then after the salah, a person, what does he do in his dua? He should face the qibla. Be in wudu, raise his hands in dua, and begin his dua praising Allah. He should begin his dua praising Allah. Thereafter, he should recite salah and salam on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best would be the salah and salam you say in tashahhud. You say in tashahhud, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad to the end. And otherwise, as we mentioned in the Eid lesson, the best manner of reciting salah and salam of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, including Al Muhammad. Thereafter, he mentions the dua of Istikharah, as we said. So his hands would be raised, he'd be praising Allah, sending salah on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the dua of Istikharah, either from his memory, or he'll be lifting the page up or the phone up, holding it or reading from it, or it's in his hands, and he can say the dua. And thereafter, he says the salah and salam on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again, because as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the dua is hanging until salah and salam is sent on me. So then, after that, then his dua is over. He can then end it with Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, or however he usually ends the dua, he can end the dua. And then like that, your istikhara would be performed. Like that, the istikhara would be performed. So what's the time for istikhara? The ulama say istikhara can be performed at all times, except in the times where the salah is prohibited. So that follows up what we said earlier. And do you say it before you sleep? Do you perform the salah before you sleep? Most ulama do not mention it. And we should remember Istikhaara is a dua. So a person should try to perform the salah at times when dua is most likely going to be accepted. So like in the last third of the night, or between adhan and iqamah, you should try and perform the salah to Istikhaara, because those are blessed times for dua to be accepted. Or what about before sleeping? Some of the ulama, some Hanafi ulama I've seen mention that you say, if you perform the salah before sleeping, then are you allowed to speak to somebody after the salah to Istikhaara? The answer is yes. There's no evidence that you do not speak to somebody after the salah, and I don't even know of any of the ulama who said you cannot speak after the salah. It might be common amongst people, but I don't think it's from the fuqaha. And then you sleep. So on these ulama who say so, they say you should try and sleep in wudu, and you should try and sleep facing the qibla. Why? Because doing these things, they are more to help a person. They help a person more from moving shaitan away, from keeping shaitan away, in case a dream is seen. So then it can be most likely that the dream is not from shaitan. If a dream is seen. We will touch on dreams just now, and whether you have to see it or not, and does it mean anything or not. But if it is seen, assuming it has benefit, then it will most likely not be from shaitan. And they also mention that dreams of a pious are most likely to be true, and they also mention a dream at certain times could be more likely true, like in the last third of the night. A dream seen at that time could more likely be true. So then you ask Allah, فَقْدُرْهُ لِي, facilitate this for me, this thing that you're undertaking. We're back to the hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu. You can say فَقْدُرْهُ لِي, or you can say فَقْدِرْهُ لِي. You can say either. So whatever you find in the book you're reading, or website that you found that has the dua, whether it's written there فَقْدُرْهُ or فَقْدِرْهُ لِي, both work. Same thing at the end of the dua. if you say the riwayat come ثم رضني به or ثم أرضني به, and some even say ثم أرضني به. So the meaning is one, means make me pleased with the outcome of this istikhara. Whichever one of the narrations you find in the book that you're reading or the website you're on or the dua you've received, all of them work, all of them work. And you're saying فَقْدُرْهُ لِي, may Allah facilitate it for me. So what you're doing is you're basically acknowledging the power of Allah and that you ask Allah to facilitate it for me. And you're putting your trust totally in Allah. And if it's not good, you turn it away. You ask Allah to turn it away. And that's how a person should be in his istikhara, that he firmly puts the decision to Allah. He himself doesn't try to be one up on the istikhara. So for example, there was a man who wanted to marry a woman. So he performed salatul istikhara. So in his dua, he said, oh Allah, if marrying so and so is good for me, then facilitate it for me, make it easy for me, and bless me in it. And then he said, if marrying her is not good for me, then cancel that, make it good for me, and then let me marry her. So he himself, he decided to have one up on the istikhara. So he didn't leave the affair totally to Allah. He said, oh Allah, if the thing is not good for me, then make it good for me, and then facilitate it for me and bless me in it. So like that, a person should not do things like that. A person should not do things like that. When he does istikhara, it should be to what Allah decides and what Allah wishes. What Allah decides and what Allah wishes. And a person, he might have an inclination beforehand, but now some things have happened to indicate to him he should not do this thing. Then in this case, he should trust Allah and trust his istikhara and then not do it. So then the ulama speak about repeating the salatul istikhara. How many times you repeat it? So basically they say you are allowed to repeat the istikhara. Istikhara can be repeated. And this is most likely if a person did not have an inclination to an answer. I'm going to explain how to know an answer to istikhara. So they say you can repeat istikhara. Many of them say 3 times, 7 up to 7. The Shafi'i scholars do not mention 7 only. They say you can repeat it as much as you like. Generally it's better to keep it on an odd, to keep certain things in deen in an odd number. But you can repeat your istikhara. And some ulama mention that the more you repeat an istikhara, the more clearer it will become to you, or the clearer it will become to you of what to do or what not to do. So you can repeat the istikhara, that's fine. And more so, as I said, if a person does not have an inclination or something after the first istikhara, then he can repeat istikhara. Then what about doing istikhara for somebody else? Here, the Hanafi and Hanbali ulama do not touch on it. They do not touch on it. But the Maliki and Shafi'i scholars say you can do istikhara for somebody else. They say there's no clear evidence, but Rasulullah said, مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَنْفَعَ أَخَاهُ فَلْيَنْفَعْهُ. Whoever amongst you is able to help his brother with something, let him help his brother. So they taken the general meaning of this hadith and they said the person can help his brother by doing istikhara for him. So we say you can seek dua from somebody else, but the action of asking somebody else to do istikhara from you seems like it was not the practice of the Sahaba. It is not the practice of the Sahaba, but would it be bid'ah to do so? No, it won't. Is there scope to do so? Yes, there is. The Shafi'i and Maliki scholars mention it. So there's scope to do so. There's scope to do so. And some ulama, what they used to do for istikhara, they used to do it in the beginning of the day. Some of the Hanafi muhaddithin mention this of some of the ulama that they used to perform istikhara in the beginning of the day. So here it's not for a specific thing, but now it's general barakah in all the decisions to take place in the day. And they say these ulama would do this at the time of duha. The time of duha, between 12 or so minutes after sunrise until before zawal, that's the time to perform salatul duha. So they would perform salatul istikhara there. And how would you phrase a salah like that? When you come to the words, oh, Allahumma in kunta ta'lamu anna hadha al-amr, oh Allah, if you know this affair, when you come to there, then there you can change the words to fit it to your situation, to fit it, oh Allah, whatever decisions I take today, then make it good for me and bless me in it and things like that. So you can phrase it in any way to fit your situation. So this is the practice of some of the ulama, and they recommended it that it be done every day for your decision. The apparent sunnah of the Sahaba or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is they did it for certain things. They did it for certain things, and not in general. But some ulama did so, and the scope for that as well. Okay, let's end there and we'll continue inshallah in a separate dars mentioning the remaining few things. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions? Yes.
One question was, you mentioned many methods, but like in the context of thinking of your money, this one or this one. Let's say you want to make one salah, but after that salah you want to make 2 da'wah to du'a of Istikhaara. Let's say one is for buying a house and one is for taking a job. You have to make one salah and then two separate du'a.
It won't be two separate du'a, as in you say the first time du'a and you do the salah and the salam Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the du'a Istikhaara, then in the du'a, and then you start the du'a again. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Two separate things, yeah.
So in this case, what will be preferable, the best thing to do when there's more than one thing, to do Istikhaara for, and they're totally separate, they're not connected, the best thing to do would be a salah and dua together separately for each thing. That would be the best thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. A person could in his one dua say, "Oh Allah, if you know that marrying or buying the house is good for me or not good for me, and if you know that taking this job or not taking this job is good for me or not good for me, facilitate it for me," and you can phrase it like that, that has scope for permissibility to do it. But two dua after one salah, again, it could work, but the best way to do it is a separate Istikhaara for separate things. If they more than one thing is connected to one thing, then here you can join them in dua. But if they're different things, then better to do a separate total Istikhaara. But there is scope to just do dua. There is scope to not perform the salah. So based on that, we could say you can just say the dua. You can just say the dua, and it's connected to the salah, so it has barakah. So that reminds me, I forgot to mention one thing, and that is, why is salah connected to Istikhaara? Why salah first? So the ulama say that generally a practice of people is that you seek permission, or you seek permission from somebody before asking them your need. You put something forward before asking them your need. You don't just meet somebody and say, "Can you help me with this?" Unless like your close friend or something, but otherwise there's something you put forward. And they say the best thing to put forward to Allah is dua, is salah. The best thing before knocking on Allah's door with dua is salah. And they say that salah includes in it praising Allah and acknowledging the oneness of Allah and acknowledging the weakness of the slave and bowing down to Allah. So all of these things are going to make the dua most likely answered, and it's going to make Allah most likely open his door and grant this person what he asks for, or to help this person. So salah is the best way to get close to Allah. Therefore, the dua is followed from the salah. So if a person were to perform the salah and then two separate dua, based on the fact Istikhaara can be done in dua only, then perhaps that could work too. But it would not be a full Istikhaara, because the full Istikhaara is salah as well. So that would probably be the answer, and Allah knows best.